just among fun. Military science, science fiction contest. Books or stories every Wednesday. Military science fiction contest. Discussion, interviews, reviews, and rants. Military science fiction contest.
I get hungry by the
You're
end.
fine though. Just my brother says hi to the pod people.
Hi to the pod people.
Yeah.
That's what he calls us.
I've never actually heard anybody say pod people before. That's
I
fine.
have, but not in this context.
In relation in context of podcasting, right? Okay, well, hey, welcome back to the show. Today we're talking about writing routines, which I think is a thing that also came up in our recent Q&A, or asking viewers for questions. And for me, at least.
Also, by the way, we promise we won't say anything important during the last 3 minutes of the show because Jeff will cut it off.
Something
like an axe to the executioner.
YouTube hates us for some reason. Anyway, writing routines change a lot. They changed for me. Rick is probably the most reliable and steady. Do you want to start off with what your routine has been, or maybe start with what your routine was while you were working still, and how, because you had a pretty erratic schedule when you were teaching. So what did that look like?
Well, I mean, it was a very reliable schedule because I was teaching high school, so I would be up at like 5:30 in the morning and get to the school by 6:30, and I would have classes until 2, and then come home, go to the gym, and then come back. And luckily, as a substitute teacher, I didn't have to do much actual work, so I could write there while I was babysitting these teenagers. And I would write like 2,000 words while I was there. And then I would, in one book. And then either after lunch or between the time that I got home from the gym and the time I ate dinner, I would write 1,000 words in another book. And then after dinner, I'd write 2,000 words in a third book. So I was really cranking them out when I was working. Because when you're sitting there babysitting a bunch of teenagers, what else are you going to do? You can't watch TV. You can't, so I look like I'm actually doing something because I'm typing in keyboard.
Because I have a really hard time with this if I'm like at work. Like obviously I do have to work, but I have a hard time like switching. Like I can't get my brain fully into the thing I'm trying to write if I have other stuff happening around me like that. So
I have never had that problem. I think it's due to the fact that
you don't have ADHD. That's what it's due to the fact.
No, but I mean I don't. But it's due to the fact that all of the thinking and the outlining and all that. I mean, all the imagination goes in the outline phase. So when I'm actually writing, all I'm doing is the only thing I'm thinking about is the best way to phrase something, like how to make the words flow. But I don't have to think like, okay, what's going to happen to them next? So it's easier for me to stay on target because I've got the outline right there saying what all is going to happen in the chapter.
Mm-hmm.
I want you all to imagine we are
fancier.
cranking
books out when I was working.
I want you all to imagine that we are a fancier podcast. And when Rick said stay on target, it would cut to Star Wars. He said stay on target, but we're not that.
I can't hold it. Stay on target. Break it off. Anyway, but when I stopped working as a substitute and started writing full time, which was during COVID, because being a substitute became much more complicated in COVID in Florida, because you had a situation where some teachers didn't want to come to class, and so they would do like a remote teaching from their home. So the substitute had to set up all the AV equipment, and I was like, I don't know how to do that, and I'm not interested in learning how, and I didn't need the money anymore, so I'm like, I'm just not going to do this anymore.
There was as a digression, there was a time where I was supervising some students whose job it was to go set up AV systems for professors, and professors are just the whiniest little word when it comes to their stuff not working.
I don't know. I might have been able to do it, but it just like, I'm like, is this worth it for me to come in there for a fraction of the money I make from writing to do this anymore. Because I didn't get any health care or anything like that. So
Mhm.
I got that from my wife's work. And so all I was getting was some extra money, and it wasn't enough extra money to make it worthwhile for me to keep doing it. So I just started writing at home. And I will tell you, it is much more difficult to put that kind of discipline into writing when you're at home and can do whatever you want.
Every time I see somebody talking about how like, oh, I'm quitting my job to write full time, or I'm going on vacation for 3 months to write full time, and I'm just like, listen, you've got to work 10 times as hard for that
Oh yeah.
discipline, because
Right.
otherwise you're not gonna keep it. You're
It's
just
not
gonna be like,
just
oh, I'll
that
sleep in
you're
today,
it's not just that your work expands to fill the time available to do it, which is true, but you also get distracted much more easily. And it took me a little while to get, I mean, I've never slacked off to the point where I'm like, oh my gosh, but I wrote 12 books in 2020. You know, that's 3 books. I was working on 3 books at a time. I wrote 12 books, and that was probably a non-sustainable pace. But I've only done that once since then. So it was I don't say it's unique because you could probably duplicate it, but it was a rare setup, a rare confluence of events that I don't think I could duplicate. And I don't think I could write 3 books at a time, 6,000 or 5,000 words a day like that. I could work on 3 books at a time if I did like 1,000 words in each of them, and just did that in a day. That'd be easy. But I could not do that again. And doing it at home means, for me now at this point, concentrating on writing 1 book at a time, 3,000, 4,000 words a day, getting it done as quick as possible, then working on a book in the next series, in another series. So that's how my workflow works now as far as my routine.
I struggled during COVID because I just left a job, and so was at home too. I mean, we had our daughter at the time was, I want to say, a year and a half old, so we were all at home. There was a lot of like distractions all the time, and I had a really hard time with that. I had a really hard time being able to focus, and I got 4 books done that year, but that was still, I felt like there were times when I was just forcing myself to put words on the page because I had to hit the deadline. And I would go back and look at them and be like, okay, they're not as bad as I thought they were. But quite honestly, I just thought they were complete garbage while I was writing them. But that's what I had to do to meet those deadlines. And I wish I could be as systematic about it as you are. I have a really hard time with that. But
I don't know. I would call my process systematic, James. It's very, very loose. But the only systematic part is I have to get a certain amount of words done per day. As far as how that happens, I did not want to have. I know a lot of authors do this. They'll say, I'm going to be in my office writing between 8 in the morning to noon, and then from noon to 4, and then I'm done. If I wanted office hours, I work in an office. I want to do what I want to do. So my system is like, get the words done, and if you don't get them done before, 10 o'clock at night, then you're going to be up till 1 in the morning. It's just the way it is.
Mhm.
And
And
see,
that's
Jeff agrees. He's
well, I cut Jeff off. So Jeff, what are some different routines that you have had?
Well, it's funny because I wrote 9 books in 2019, and I got in September of 2019, I got sicker than I've ever been in my life. And I now retroactively think that probably was COVID,
Mhm.
because it was so bad. But yeah, that's unsustainable. It's just really difficult to write that many books back to back for me anymore, anyways. And then 2020 happened, and I
bearing in
thought,
mind that Jeff
oh,
has all the children in the world.
all the children in the
Yes.
world. And then it only seemed to be getting more as time goes on. And then 2020 happened, and it was like, oh, I'm gonna knock out the 3 Grimm books in 2020, and then I'll have those coming out in 2021, and everything will be great. And spoiler alert, that did not happen. I barely finished one book in 2020 because of all the stuff that was going on. It was just stressful, and I didn't have a job to stay home from. Um, but so for us, the stay home part was great because we already stayed home, so we just had an excuse not to leave. But there was a lot of other stress involved in 2020 that was not great.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was a distracting year, but for me, I was glad I had writing to take me away from all that. So
It was
Yeah,
the
well, I
first
mean,
time. Well, and Jeff, maybe you can talk about this too. Like, it was the first time I'd had a job that was completely internally motivated, right? Like every other job I've ever had, like there's some kind of external thing, that has to get done even on a daily or hourly basis. And writing is not like that. Like I had a deadline that I had agreed to of, whatever, 3 months at the time. But like family one, like it's so easy for other things to get in the way, and then you get pissed frustrated that you didn't get the work done, so maybe I'll just play a video game for an hour, and oh, that became 3 hours. And and then you turn around, a day has gone by and I only got 1,000 words in when I really wanted to get four. And that has been a hard thing to, I guess I'm being totally honest about this. So hopefully I can help people that, we are fortunate to have Rick, who is a machine. Jeff has accomplished so much. I try to be the balancing force here, I guess, because I just have really struggled with getting that much stuff done. Um,
you're the only one of us three that has a full time job too,
yeah. And well, and sometimes like having a job helps
and a
because
kid.
yeah, I mean, you only have so much time. And when all of a sudden it's like you have all the time in the world, well, it's much harder to focus. At least it has been for me. So
I mean, and also, we all have our own health issues, and ADHD and sleep apnea and things like that don't help. I I was really tired of being poor.
yeah,
To be completely honest, I was really tired of being poor in 2015 when um it was like it was the time to crap or get off the pot kind of thing. And so I told myself that I am not getting another job ever. I'm tired of working for the people giving me the best days of my life, best hours of my life, and I was all done with it. And so I really I did the work. I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning every morning, and I wrote until I had 1,500 words, which I thought was a lot of the time. And I did all the research to find ways to write faster and to do better and to struggle. I really struggled with outlining, so it was like I was always a constant battle to try and figure out a way to outline so I didn't pants everything. And that really helped with the routine. However, as we always say, no plan survives contact with the enemy, and the enemy in this case is my children. And so as we had more kids, and they would get up earlier.
You must defeat the enemy and push them out.
Yeah, crush your enemies, and
See them driven out of the house before you.
and so it became more and more difficult for me to have 6 hours a day to write. And so I started compressing all my writing to 2 hours before they got up. And then when I really need to, I'll get up. I don't get up at 5 anymore. I usually get up at 6, but like the last few months I'm gonna get up at 5 because I really need to finish this book on time. And obviously I cheat a little bit. I take Adderall for my ADHD, which really helps. Keeps me focused, that kind of thing. And I drink a lot of caffeine, and I try really, really hard. I focus really, really hard on like once I start writing to not click out of the window, even to do research. But I do, though, and then on next thing you know, an hour's gone by and you're watching YouTube shorts, and it's just like the bane of my existence. So
I need some Subtractorol to keep me from getting too focused.
well, that's not a thing you want to complain about around here, Rick. All right, all right, just shut your A-type personality mouth. And the thing that I would recommend for people is as hard as it is, as difficult it is to set multitude of alarms on your phone and in your personal life. And when you find it becoming easy to ignore those alarms and easy to sit down at your computer and not write, change locations. Changing locations always helps me. I'll bounce back and forth between writing at the house and writing at like a restaurant like Chick-fil-A or something like
Or
that.
even inside your house, I found helps me to change rooms. Just go to a different room and write.
It really helps with the dopamine, that you get from writing if you're not staring at the exact same location. And I know
Jeff doesn't have the option of changing rooms because the other rooms have children in them.
All the rooms have children in them. The only reason there aren't children in this room right now is they're out. We forced them outside because it's 70 degrees out. So there's lots of little things you can do. I bounce back and forth between writing one book and writing two books. Every once in a while, it really works well for me that I can write a couple of thousand words in the morning, and then if I have time at night, I'll tool around with outlining or writing 1,000 words at night. I have been running into this problem recently where I have books to edit that aren't mine, and I find that really difficult to do. It's hard for me to focus on that. Sorry, James. No matter how good they are, and it is very good, it's just difficult for me to focus on reading somebody else's
I
work.
hate editing. I really don't like it.
I like
So,
editing my
some
stuff.
people
I
love
just,
it.
editing somebody else's stuff is not. I just, yeah. But and I got two books. I got a Wraith book that I wrote with somebody that I need to edit and publish at some point, and then I've got I've got to get edits back to you for Retreat Hell, and it's difficult for me. So along with having six children and taking care of my wife and making sure that I spend enough time with my family and enough time taking care of stuff in the house, and because it's a house and houses has got to be repaired and cleaned and taken care of, and also we want to buy a house, so that takes time away from me. And so you really got to kind of have a wife or husband who helps you guard your time to write and encourages you to write, because I really feel bad for people who have unsupportive wives and husbands, because that's got to be the worst. And two, and this is usually my hot take, because everybody else's advice is always like, oh, you got to take breaks. Yeah, no breaks. You write every day, right? You write every day that you can write. I say that, but I usually don't write on Sundays. That's for religious reasons. There, even if it's just 50 words, you write every day, and you keep that train moving, because once you stop writing, you lose momentum. And once you lose momentum, every day that you don't write, it's that much harder to start up again.
I always say that writing is a habit, like every other habit you get into, like working out, like going, brushing your teeth, getting to bed on time. And if you stop doing the habit for long enough, it stops being a habit. And then you don't do it. You have to force yourself to do it. So yeah, write every day.
It's funny because my wife and I both have ADHD, and we joke about this all the time. There are no habits when you have ADHD. You have to force yourself to do everything. You have to force yourself to brush your teeth. You have to force yourself to do everything. There's no autopilot or habitual behaviors that are beneficial to you. And so if I don't force myself to sit down and write every day, I just won't do it. And so you've got to do that. You've got to force yourself down and write the words, even if it's just 50 words. Now, oftentimes I will find that on the days where I'm struggling, I will sit down and I'll start writing, and next thing I know, an hour's gone by and I've written 500 or 600 words. So that's great right there. But sometimes it's just like, yeah, I wrote 50 words, and that's just going to have to be good enough for today, because it's just not working. And I wish it wasn't that way. I wish I could do what Rick does and write 3,000 words every single day. But unfortunately, our circumstances are different. Maybe in about, Amelia's 10 months old. Maybe in about 17 years and 2 months, I can.
You'll be too old and decrepit to write.
I know, man. I wish it changed. When they're 18, they're worse because you can't do anything to help them. You can try, but
no, he's going to kick him out of the house at 18.
Legally, you don't have to
listen.
I wanted to go back to, because I think one thing I wanted to know.
I want to be clear real quick. Hold on. I got to be clear here real quick. I am not complaining about my children. I adore my children and I love my children. I'm just explaining that they also make it difficult to write sometimes. But they are wonderful, wonderful kids. Just like my wife is amazing and supportive and absolutely the best wife ever. Just FYI.
Family, like, yeah, I don't know. I love being able to write as well, but like family to me is that, I don't know. Anyway, so I wanted to go back to, for me, if I don't write every day, I lose the thread of what I'm working on. And for me, that is really hard because of all the other things that are going on in my life, from work to everything else, that if I lose the thread of the story. And the one key thing, if I could share with anybody from what I've learned, is that outlining has helped me tremendously. Like if I don't outline something and I start writing it and then I stop for whatever reason because life gets in the way and I lose the thread of it, now I'm really behind because I don't know where I was going or what the original, inspiration was with that thing. And now you end up often sidestepping or going to some different thing that when you go back and read it, you realize like, oh, I forgot something important, or it just doesn't make sense on where it's going. So outlining has been the biggest. There was a book by what's her name, Rachel Aaron. I think it's 2K to 10K, and that was my main takeaway from that book on how to write faster was to outline.
I thought that was
And
a running book.
yeah, I mean, it could be a running book.
Oh, she just talked about her in a nutshell. It was sit before you write every morning, spend 15 minutes writing about what you're going to write about.
Yeah.
And then, and you'll find that you write a lot more. She wrote a really, really great opening scene for a book. One of the best I've ever read. Becky, what was the name of that book? Eli something. It was really, really good. And so she definitely, and then she went on to write her Dragon series, which is really, really popular. Nice Dragons Finish Last. And so she's got the credit in my mind. She has credibility to her.
Nice Dragons Finish Last.
Yeah. Yeah. In my mind, she's got credibility to her giving writing advice.
Yeah. And that's a short book. I still recommend that one all the time. But
Eli Monpress, that's the name of the book series. Eli Monpress. Eli Monpress, that's her book series.
So talking about kind of dopamine, like, we live in a time, and this for me gets to routine as well. Like I've been thinking about this a lot. Like if you find yourself not being excited by writing, or is gaming or other things getting in the way of, like, is it giving you the dopamine hit, like even scrolling on the phone, that you really should be getting from writing, and how to get back to that? So, I mean, some people talk about like staring at a blank wall, like trying to all the little dopamine hits that everywhere we look now are trying to give us to hook us on that. Is there anything you do to get back to writing being the fun thing to do, especially when it feels like work?
When you're first starting out, I'm going to aim this at people who are first starting out, because I feel like I had a very successful launch to my career, and it was all very deliberate and very purposeful. And, there wasn't, Rebecca and I kind of plotted things out about how are we going to do this? How are we going to make this work? What can we stack in our favor so that my success is more guaranteed than it was? Of course, there's no guarantee in this business, but I feel like you can stack the odds in your favor. And one of the things I did was, and of course you have to really, the two things that make you successful in this business are one, a commitment, and two, persistence.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to really commit. You've got to commit in a way that you have never committed to anything in your life. I work harder at this than I work in the Army, and that's saying something. And so in 2015, when I was like, I'm going to be a successful writer, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, I stopped playing video games. I canceled my WoW subscription. I quit playing League of Legends, which was my obsession at the time. I uninstalled Steam. Forgive me, Gabe. It was hugely important to me. I stopped watching movies. I stopped watching TV shows. I still read books because you can't take away my books, but it was hugely important to me to be successful at this. And part of me wishes I still had that level of like focus, but it's unsustainable. It's an unsustainable level of focus because you push everything aside except for your main goal. But it's a good start. It's a good jumping off point. It's a good place to start with, where you are working really hard toward a specific goal. Which brings me to the other thing that really helps is actual attainable goals. When I was in school, in high school, they would teach us about goals, and they didn't actually really teach us about goals. What they taught us about were dreams. They'd say, what's your goal for your life? That's a dream. A goal is, I'm going to write X amount of words every day, X amount of words every week, X amount of number of books every year. Those are goals. Those are sustainable, achievable goals that you can measure. And so setting those goals really, really helps in a big way. My goal this year is to write 1,600 words every day. Don't ask me if I've done that, because I haven't. But it doesn't matter if you succeed at those goals or not. The fact is, you're working toward a goal. You'll work much harder toward a goal than you will not any goal at all.
I'll add on to that. Well, first thing, tomorrow is always a new day. Right now is a new time. Like, you could be frustrated that I didn't get done what I did yesterday, but there's nothing stopping me from taking a break and going to write 500 words. Like,
it's cliche as it is, today is the first day of the rest of your life.
I know.
A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and every other cliche I can think of.
But the next 5 years are going to happen no matter what. You might as well write books.
I mean, some of this we're aiming at first-time writers, but I also feel like I'm always coming back to this advice constantly. Like the thing that I got done before, it's like life changes, things change. There's a reason this stuff works, and I come back to it all the time. I also wanted to add that when it comes to making goals, like yes, sustainable, attainable goals, but then how are you going to achieve that goal? Like when are you going to do that thing? How are you going to do it? Where are you going to do it? Did you tell someone who's important to you, like tell your wife, tell your boyfriend, whatever, I'm going to do this thing at this time.
I told my
And
boyfriend, but then he told my wife.
I know now you're screwed. Like I'm going to do this and please support me in it. And that way they know what you're doing. So like my wife, if I disappear to go do something, she gets irritated with me, which, is fair, right? So, but that way other people are on board with it too. And it's not just a thing that exists inside your brain. You have now entered it into the world. And for me, at least, if I let other people down, I feel doubly bad about something, right? But that helps me find that motivation to get the thing done. And that's been really helpful for me too.
It also helps when your rent and your food and your children's
Yeah,
lives
I was
depend
going to
on what you're
say that's
making.
the thing. I mean, that's if you don't have another job, this is all that's motivation enough.
I know. Well, I mean, it's when you have to, because that's part of my problem is I'm probably never going to be motivated by those things because I'm the bread. I have other ways of making money that provide health insurance and I can't step away from those things. So I have to motivate myself to get this stuff done. And I'm sure it would be a very strong motivator if I was depending on it to pay the mortgage. So it's a bit different for me.
Also, I think the thing that lives inside my brain would make a great 1950s horror movie name.
Well, what's funny is like people talk about how like, oh, you write for a living, you do this as your full-time job. That's so wonderful. I would love that. And there are a lot of advantages to it, and I'm not complaining because I am living a dream that my childhood self never imagined was possible. But I also have a great deal of respect for people like James who work 40 hours a week or more and still manage to write. Because when I worked 40 hours a week, I would come home and I was exhausted every single day,
Yeah, don't. I mean,
mentally and emotionally
it's not a
just done.
slight because I wouldn't if I had a job that I could work that I loved as much as I love writing, and I could write just for a hobby, and I made as much money, I would do that because everything. Like for instance, I do wildlife photography as a hobby. If that were its job, it would lose a lot of the fun that it has for me.
Mhm.
And I'm not that saying writing isn't fun still, but if I could just write as a hobby, as something I did on the side, that would be um, that would be very acceptable to me. It would be cool as long as I like what I did for a living, you know. But
My big problem is I have never enjoyed anything I've ever done
that's
for a
what I
paycheck,
was about to say.
ever.
I've never found a job like that. So
And
I
I
mean,
I was perpetually depressed my entire life because I hated every job I had and every person I worked for. It was always a nightmare. And
yeah,
I
I
was
pretty much
always,
agree. That's
this
the thing.
is
That's the thing about being a substitute teacher is that you don't have a boss really, and if you don't like a particular school or class, you never have to go back there. Um, but and that's great, but you don't make any money at it. So that was not something I could do for a living. If my wife hadn't been a pharmacist, I couldn't have made a living off of doing that. So
yeah, this is
it
the first thing I've ever done in my life where not only do I make a really good amount of money, I also am incredibly happy and fulfilled with it. We have three
yeah.
boxes. We've got our work box, our spiritual box, and our family box. And I always had the family and the spirit box filled, but my work box was always dead empty, and
I
it
thought
it
it was the
made life
ballot
hard.
box, the soap box, and the cartridge box.
So
it's
those are
your
your
car, your
options.
job, and your relationship, and only two work at one time, right?
Yeah, but now I've got all three.
Yeah.
I'm fulfilled with my family, with my spirituality, and with my job, and it's unique, and I fully recognize how blessed I am to be in this position to do this, and how blessed I am to have just an amazing wife who is super supportive of me. And as I was just telling her before the podcast, is 50% responsible for my success because of that book covers and all the support she gives me.
And I'll also add to it, like I've made like probably right around 2019, I made a like I was on a trajectory. I was director of security for university. Like it's one of those jobs where you're going to move, like this is a point where you're dedicating your life to this thing, or you don't want to do that and you do something else. And that's kind of what I did, because I realized that isn't the direction I wanted to go in. That wasn't what I wanted to do. And the job I have now, like, is never going to pay as much. Like, it still pays pretty well for where I live, and the benefits are great. But for me, the biggest key of this job is flexibility. While I do have to respond to things kind of all the time, I have a lot of flexibility to do the things that I like to do, which to me is the most important aspect. So, that's, maybe you're not going to make as much money as you might want, but if you can live where you want and have the time you want, to me, that's, more valuable than making the money, especially if I can write, and I do make, like, I've always been pretty worried if I have my money coming from only one source. So having money coming from multiple sources makes me feel a lot more comfortable that if one thing does drop out, like the job, I could transition over to the other thing and put more effort into that. And I've already, those relationships exist. I would hope that a publisher, if I tell them I can give them, 2 series a year as opposed to one book, they'd be pretty happy with that. So, because that's money for them. So I don't know. That's the thing I kind of navigate that with, and that's my only anxiety about this world and losing one job if that's all you've got. That worries me. But let's get back to routines. What are some other specifics about? We talked about changing places. We've talked about using different laptops or computers. Do you guys ever switch it up and, like, handwrite maybe, or dictate, or have you tried dictation? I've tried dictation and it never worked well for me.
What kind of monster tries to write a 100,000 word novel with a pencil?
Right. Well, maybe the outlining piece of it you could handwrite.
I used to handwrite a lot more. I used to have like big piles of 5-ring college ruled spiral notebooks, like 200-page, and I would write outlines and ideas in those, and maybe a few pages of prose. But something has happened since I have become better at typing, and that's my handwriting sucks so bad that I cannot read it anymore. So I don't do that anymore. Plus, when I had surgery on my elbow, I still can't feel my pinky. So writing at all now is hard. Writing a check, it's like I got to or making an envelope. I got to concentrate to make the words legible because I can't feel the pen on my pinky. So no, I don't handwrite anything anymore. If I want to take notes or do something different, I will like dictate into the note feature on my phone, or usually I'll do that because typing with my phone sucks. But no, I don't handwrite, and I have not for probably 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I will occasionally write notes down, not about my book, but like, I have a to-do list, of stickies that they're not in front of me. I'll forget that they exist, and 6 months will go by and I'll have forgotten to pay a bill. But the writing wise, I switch between my desktop and my laptop. I prefer writing on my laptop, but it's just easier to write on my desktop most days. And also really like having like a big 32-inch screen for me to write on, because I put a screenshot of this in the Discord the other day where I have my book on one side, and then I've got like character list and outline on the other, and I can switch back and forth easily without having to change screens. And the biggest for me, the changing up the routine is just changing where I am. Switch to my laptop, go write at the park, or go write in a restaurant, or go right downstairs or something. That's really helpful a lot of the times, and especially if you have a laptop you like writing on, like I do. It's not a MacBook, it's a Surface. I love writing on my Surface. It's great. I hate dictating. I've tried. The
only way I've been able to dictate so far, and I only did this right after my surgery, is Beth, my wife, would sit there. Usually, we've done it in the office, where she's sitting on the chair and I'm sitting on the couch, but that's not, usually I have to sit like where she sits on the bed with the laptop and I'm sitting like right here looking over her shoulder and telling her what to write. That's the only way I've been able to dictate. I cannot dictate with like, the thing, what's his name? The guy who dictates while he's hiking? Kevin
Anderson.
Kevin Anderson. Yeah. I mean, I envy him because he can he lives in Colorado, and I live a place where I could hike too. And if I could dictate while I was hiking, I would do that. I would be in the best shape ever, and I would be hiking every day. But no, I can't. I can't keep it straight in my head when I'm talking about it. I lose track of where I am.
His secret sauce was kind of the same thing though. Like he had an assistant that would transcribe everything for him. He wasn't using like, I mean, he said he used Dragon, but then he would still like, and reading between the lines in his book about dictating was that his assistant goes back and cleans it all up and makes it, actually usable. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I thought I was muted. he yeah, he dictates, but then he gives it to an assistant who types it all out and cleans it up and does all the editing and adds dialogue and blah blah blah. And you know, if I was writing Dune novels and winning Academy Awards, I could probably do that too.
someday.
Shit.
I've come back to handwriting because, like I said, I'm struggling with the dopamine addiction right now. So I use it for outlining. I use it for like jotting down ideas. Quite often I'll be doing something and I'll be thinking about a story or thinking about something, and an idea occurs to me or a phrase or something I want a character to do, and if I don't write it down, like it just disappears. And I wish that didn't happen, but I I'll do that a lot, and then I can go back and I'll flesh that out and I'll look at it. And I try to start my writing day currently by doing some writing because I hate that if I sit down at my computer, my first impulse is like to start surfing the web. And so I'm trying to get away from that. If, anything I can do to like reduce distractions and get my mind into the writing focus and get that routine moving is what I'm trying to work on right now. And so handwriting has been helping with that, like, because I can't do anything else except that. Um, the other thing I was going to note is that I play certain kinds of music when I'm working. So like if I play like this out, like this lit playlist, this is the get to writing playlist. And I actually find that does help me because my brain associates the writing, like that music with writing. And even later on, like if I hear that song, some other time, it'll make me think about what I was writing. And so that has been something I use a lot too.
Hmm.
And I
Interesting.
go through both. Like I
Yeah.
have playlists that I'll listen to, and then when the dopamine on them runs out, I will listen to nothing, or I will listen to another song on repeat for days, and then
I've
never
done
want to
that.
hear it again. Um, it is really quite weird having ADHD because you get into these loops where you just have to listen to this thing over and over and over again until you just
Well, I get that
everybody's
too,
sick
and
of
I
it.
don't have ADHD, dude. I get earworms where the only way for me to get rid of them is to just play the song over and over and over again.
Well, I
And
find that if I play it over and over again, I actually stop paying attention to it, which is what I
yeah, well,
need.
that's the whole
And
point
right.
to get rid of the song in your head.
I've tried Brain FM, which is supposed to have that whatever oral beats that help get you into flow state faster. And I find my
Bilateral.
yeah, binaural. I find myself like listening to paying too much attention to the music because I want to figure out like what it's doing and when will I get into flow
That's
state? Am I in flow state? So
that's the problem I
There's
have
some.
listening to music while I write is I'm very into lyrics.
mm,
So if I'm listening to a song with great lyrics, I will stop listening, not paying attention to my writing, and pay attention to the lyrics. There was a song. This is kind of a tangent, but I was just letting YouTube play music for me. Usually it'll play like songs I've heard a million times before, and I can ignore them. And it started playing a song by Corb Lund, who's a Canadian country singer, called "Horse Soldier, Horse Soldier." And apropos of military science fiction, it's a very, very cool song with great lyrics about cavalry throughout the ages and cavalrymen. And I just got like wrapped up in the lyrics of that song, and I listened to it over and over and over again, and it took me days until I got it out of my head. But that's the kind of thing I have with music. So usually that's why I put like car crash videos or something on, something I don't have to think about, like dash cam videos,
oh,
near misses.
so I can't help but watching like you keep waiting for when the crash is going to come.
Yeah, but it's just something I can have on in the background that I don't think about and I don't like sit there and dwell on. But by the way, if you like country or kind of folkish music, check out that song and his song "I Want to Be in the Cavalry." Great songs, great lyrics.
Just found a new artist to check out. Corb, Corblund.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
He
not
also
really
has
that
one
much
called
into.
Student Visas, which is incredible as well.
I'm not really that much into lyrics, so that usually doesn't get me. Listening to music doesn't usually, stop me from writing. But sometimes I just be like the noise itself stops me from writing, and I have to have silence, and it goes back and forth. It's
I
different,
think I think for me, um, I know that I could never write music, but I could write lyrics. And so when I see really well written lyrics, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's such a great job, you know?
I did write a song. I wrote a song for my books actually.
I
Um,
wrote when I was a teenager, I was drawing in church because I usually did that because I was bored. And I drew an album cover, and and I was the lead singer of this band, and I had a guitar for some reason. And I put a list of songs, like song titles. And as the years went by, like 2 or 3 years through college, I wrote the lyrics to all those songs. Now they all sucked, pretty much, but I wrote them all. Just
I mean, it's an affront to
that's funny.
musicians everywhere, but I do like that. I've played around with that AI service, like what is it, Suni or something that lets you, like, you can take lyrics
I
and then
did
say,
that too. I did that
yeah,
too.
my daughter loves it. Like I'll make songs for her, like with her name in it, and she just loves it. But, um, but what is it like playing music as well? Like I play guitar and saxophone, and I'll find that that's another thing that kind of helps me with the dopamine is to play, play music if I need to do something else to like try and kick my mind out of, being stuck in a doom, social media doom loop or whatever. That helps a lot. I find that helps my writing because my brain, that is one thing where my brain will go someplace else while I'm playing music, and it often goes to the story that I'm working on. So it's a way to get back into the thing that I'm trying to, you know, to get finished.
I was thinking about maybe looking for a secondhand typewriter,
Yeah.
just because well, we were all talking about the role of AI and how it's becoming more and more intrusive, and how the companies seem to really, really want to push it into every single product possible. Nvidia is pushing it into gaming, and Microsoft's pushing it onto the Xbox, and it's right now you can turn off Copilot, but who knows if you'll be able to in the future.
I hate
And
typewriters. I used them when I was in college because I
me
didn't have a
too,
choice.
but I'm wondering if there's going to be a point where AI becomes so intrusive that in order to write what we want to write and not have it automatically edit for us,
Just turn
you
the
know,
Wi-Fi off on your laptop, and they won't be able to do anything.
well,
There
for
are
right now,
local
you can shut it
models.
like I
Yeah.
said, for right now, you can shut it off. I'm talking about the future. And
In the future, you're
anyways,
still not going to have an AI that's compact enough to fit on your laptop without a
Oh,
internet connection.
they exist now, Rick. They they definitely exist. I mean,
Ah,
I've got one
they
installed.
always existed. That whole
Yeah.
thing when the LM models first came out, and everybody was like, "Oh, you need a server farm." You didn't. You really didn't. You need a
I
server
mean, you
farm to
need you
train
need a
them.
server farm for what they do now, really.
You needed a server farm to train them. You don't need a server farm to run them. But you need a server
I
farm to run them
agree.
for millions of people at the same time.
Most of what
But
AI does, in my experience, is searching the web. And if it can't search the web, it can't do what it does now.
well, yes, but I'm talking about how like a lot of times before I shut Copilot off, I'd be writing in Word, and it would be like, "Oh, this is egregious language," or "This is insensitive language," and blah blah blah. And I was like, "Okay, I'm shutting you off
You
now."
can shut it checking the word
Rick,
checking for anything off.
listen to me. In the future, I wonder if you won't be able to.
Well, let me tell you, Jeff. Right now, there are other writing software that is not as popular as Word because people use Word in editing and publishing. But if that happened, there would be other software that would come up that would become the default for most writers, where they would use that instead of Word if Copilot became that intrusive.
I would hope so. Yeah, I
I
would
mean,
absolutely hope so.
I'm looking around trying to find I thought I had one that wasn't in the box. I have a box of Alpha Smart, um, single purpose typewriters, and I've got the BYOK, which
You've got
is
all those little gadgets for writing.
I
Yeah.
know, dude. Like that's another thing like we should touch. Like I waste way too much money. I would say that if you ever have a desire to buy something that's going to help make your writing better, make your writing better, don't buy it. Don't do it. Just go outside, like
We
kick
should do
yourself.
an episode on all the gadgets you bought over the years.
Yeah, I mean,
That would be a good idea.
I am definitely gonna like eBay some stuff, but I mean that's kind of that it is a niche that's growing where a device that is not connected to anything that, you know, they also have like long battery life and all blah, blah, blah. But I think it's definitely becoming a thing, especially if you don't realize, like for me, it's all the defaults on this. Like if I fire up a new install of Word, all that stuff is on by default. And if I don't realize it's there, it's like auto completing and it's, you know, like you're saying, Jeff, like it's inserting, you know, different information about the thing I'm trying to write that all gets in the way of the thing I'm trying to do. I have such a hard time clearing my mind to write as it is. I don't want pop-ups and tutorials and then like things within the line changing what I'm writing. I mean, I've talked about the fact my mom has been dealing with my mom having dementia and like being around my mom all the time. And I worry half the time that I'm gonna like I'm developing early onset dementia because I just see it all the time. And so whenever something like that happens and I lose my train of thought or I can't remember what I was going to write but then I realize like, no, the world around us is constantly, I'm putting on my tinfoil hat, but they are constantly trying to get between you and the thing you're trying to do, either by being helpful or inserting an ad in some way or
They're trying to monetize your life.
exactly. And it is actively happening. So it's frustrating. I mean, yeah, I feel like the routine is, you know, I've tried meditation before. I'm not good at it, but it seemed like the thing about meditation is always like you're not meditating, your mind moves, move back to the trying. And that feels like operating in the world today is always like moving back, you know, constantly distracted focus, you know. And yeah, it's a challenge.
Well, you know, it's the modern world we live in is super harmful for attention span. You know, right now it's like it used to be like they tell you don't let your kids watch TV, and now it's like don't let your kids watch YouTube Shorts. You
Right.
know, have them watch TV instead. And I was just like, well, you know, thank you for that information. I never would have known that my kid flipping the YouTube channel every 3 seconds would be harmful for them.
Their
It's
school
harmful
issued
for
laptop
me.
uses YouTube.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't.
Don't even get me started on that.
I don't know that. I don't know that it's possible to really change your kids' mental wiring though by telling them not to watch YouTube Shorts or anything else. Because when I was a kid, you know, it was all like, "Oh, you shouldn't watch TV so much" or whatever. But kids did it anyway, you know, no matter what their parents said. It's just it's sad, but it's just probably the way it's going to be, and then it'll change. I mean, kids nowadays are more interested in reading. The ones who read are more interested in reading like hardback physical books
There
anymore.
is there's definitely a backlash happening
Yeah.
to all the technology and intrusion and stuff like that, which is
Mhm.
normal. I mean, this is what happens. You know, something happens, it takes over the whole world, and then people come after like, we don't like this, so we're not doing it. And you know, I'm hopeful that you know, I mean, obviously it is working because Barnes and Noble opened several stores last year. They're in the black for the first time in 15 years. You know, so it's going good. It is going good.
I mean,
Speaking of Barnes and
it's one
Noble,
of those things where we think we can change what's happening, and likely we're just watching it happen. You know,
yeah. Um, Rick and I have got some book signings coming up too, so make sure you guys stay in the loop on our Discord
mine are in
for when
July.
those are. I've got them in May, June, and July, but that's just because I live around bookstores and Rick lives in the middle of nowhere.
Well, they're trying to get me a signing at the Billings Barnes and Noble, which is only 87 miles away. But I don't know why they're having trouble. Maybe that they're just not as many science fiction fans in Billings. I don't know. There's a lot more
Every
science fiction fans in Salt Lake City, probably.
Yeah, there really is.
Well,
There's
there's more
huge
people in Salt
sci-fi.
Lake City.
Well, there's that, but I mean, also this is a generalization. But in
It's
my
true though.
experience, I have found that Mormons like fantasy and science fiction.
Yes, no, it's why we have a disproportionate number of authors are Mormon
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
is
proving to be
because
true
of
and
it.
more and more true.
Also, the thing is that we have a culture of reading. You know, it's
yeah.
very important. Reading is very important to you know people in the LDS Church. It's just you know you learn to read at a young age and you read a
Whereas
lot.
whereas Billings has a culture of methamphetamine mostly.
Well, put some in your book.
There you
Right.
go.
Shh, just take the book.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are some final things that have helped you establish routine? Like Rick, you mentioned exercise. Are there other parts of your life that you get into a routine to make the writing more possible as a routine, or do you anchor things on the writing? Like this is the thing that I must do at this time, and other stuff kind of goes from there.
I'm not sure that I'm not sure I have any other routines really at this point, except for photography. I do that when I can, and I've started in the late spring through the mid fall. I will sometimes drive into Yellowstone, which is only like an hour and a half from me, and I will on a nice day just park my car in say the Hayden Valley, pop the back hatch up, and lay down in the or sit down in the back of the Explorer and write while I'm just sitting there with Yellowstone around me, and that's helped me I write faster that way because there's fewer distractions. I'm not surrounded by like the dog wanting to play or things I have to do around the house or TV shows or whatever. I just sit there and unless bear or a wolf or an eagle comes along,
Nature's
just,
pop up.
yeah. But other than that, I just sit there and write.
My recommendation is just if this is something you really want to do, if it's really important to you, then you just watch motivational videos, tell yourself that you're going to do it, commit to it, and and brute force it if you have to. I've never really found any tricks that work beyond just forcing myself to get up, forcing myself to sit down, and making it happen. I wish I had the ability to like kind of go on autopilot and like get up in the morning and do a routine, but if I don't actively think about it every single day, I don't do it. So you just gotta make yourself do it, and you'll be better for it. You'll have a book. Whereas you look at all the years of your life that have gone by where you didn't have books.
Mhm. And it's always a new opportunity to have a book.
I've had books all of my life.
I will say for me, if I don't the time has to exist. Like just thinking that I'll write tomorrow during lunch or whatever. If I do it 2 times in a row and I don't do it, I need to just accept that I'm not going to do it. Like that is not a time that I can use to write. Like I would like to eat. I would like to zone out, like whatever. So I often will have to establish routines outside of the regular life routine. So getting up earlier to be able to do that. But that means I need to go to bed by 10 o'clock. That means I need to, and I've kind of stopped drinking alcohol anyway, but it used to be if I drank, had a couple beers at night, that would mess with my sleep. And then I wouldn't be able to get up in the morning to get writing done. And so I sort of have to keep everything in line throughout the day, or it's not going to line up to the time that I actually have to get work done, which is 6 a.m. before anybody gets up. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Well, James, that is going against the time-honored tradition of a lot of writers
I know,
for whom alcohol is very important.
Right up until they stick a shotgun in their mouth.
I know.
We're not only talking about Hemingway.
Yeah. I mean, and that's something I've learned, pretty late in life at this point, but stop. And it's kind of a thing to talk about. Like it used to be like, okay, I have a few beers, mind starts moving in interesting ways. I can get a lot of work done. But actually when I think back on it, like I'm not actually in control of what I was doing there, right? Like I was using alcohol as an excuse to make me feel like, or think I could write more. When in fact it's not helping me and I'm not happy with what I'm writing when that's happening. So I've definitely moved away.
I have to admit, I have never written while buzzed. I cannot.
I used to all the time.
I can't concentrate on that kind of thing.
There's this really stupid but funny movie called The Green Hornet that came out a few years back.
I remember that.
Rogen.
Yeah.
And there's this scene at the end where the bad guy sits down next to him at a bar, and Seth's character starts putting it all together, and there's like this visual montage of things happening, and he thinks he's being so smart and so clever, and then it pans to the bad guy. He's like, "Oh, I see by the vapid expression you've had on your face for the last 5 minutes that you finally figured it out." And I kind of feel like when people are on drugs or alcohol when they're writing, that's like they think that there's this like really great thing happening in their brain, and it's just all this great possibilities and this huge imagination, but in reality they're just sitting there drooling on themselves while they write barely passable words.
The closest I've come is once when I first got my prescription for Ambien, I did not know how quickly it took effect. So like the first few times I took it, I was I was like thinking, oh, it takes like a 45 minutes or an hour to take effect. It takes like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So, like I'd be watching a TV show at 10 o'clock and I would take one and then watch the rest of the TV show. And the next morning I would not remember how the TV show ended. But one time I was I was finishing a chapter and took Ambien and like 20 minutes in, I wrote this section I don't remember writing. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad except that there's a lot of misspellings, you know. But you know, it was an okay section.
way back when that first came out, I was having a lot of trouble sleeping. My doctor prescribed it for me, and I used to like have a snack before bed, and I take it, and then a few minutes would go by, and I'm like, I'm gonna go make a snack. And then the next morning I wake up and there'd be like crumbs all over me. Like
That's what I've
a
heard
bag
about,
of cookies and some
night
food.
eating.
I'm like, what the heck?
Night driving.
I never did any of that stuff.
You just go in the
I always
kitchen
went
and
straight to sleep.
You just start. Well, clearly not because you were writing.
Well, no, but I wrote intentionally. I started writing before you know, when I took the pill, I started writing on purpose, and then I just don't remember what I wrote, and I wasn't spelling right. But I mean,
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I took the pill and then I went to go make something to eat, you know,
Yeah.
and then you just, next thing you know, I mean, like I've made a 5-course meal and ate it in bed. It's just,
I mean, the core
it
of it,
was
so the thing
awful.
to note is when some major thing changes in your life, like a new medication or your mother has, your parents have to move in with you, like don't be super hard on yourself, or at least accept that this is going to change your life. And now it's time to think about, okay, if I still want to get this thing done and it's important to me, I need to take this into account, right? Because, I mean, depending on what's going on in your life, you could have major life changes. And if anything, I'll say writing kind of helps me. Like, I'll start listing all the things I'm doing at some point while I'm trying to work on a book, and people look at me like I'm crazy. And I'm just like, well, that's just what I had to do, right? I just had to get that done. Because to me, in my mind, the book is the thing I really want to get done. And doing my mom's
Everything
taxes,
else is in the way.
yeah, all that other stuff is just like, all right, I'll just get that done. It stresses me out. Maybe that is the secret there. While the writing stresses me out, all the other things don't, which probably should, but don't. So, um, yeah. Well, I don't know. We're at an hour. So I think if we did not, I think we managed to hit a lot of the things about routine. If there's stuff about routine you want to share, we'll really try to not cut this off. Um, and I'm the
We
one.
should talk about nothing for 3 minutes now.
So, thanks for hanging out with us. If you haven't joined, what?
Feel free to share any questions you have after you hit the like and subscribe button
Yeah,
and
do
share
that.
this.
Then
That
we're like
button.
4 people away from 300 subscribers. So that's super cool. And it's weird by the amount of people asking to be on the show and other things like that. I keep thinking like, well, the show hasn't really gotten a lot of subscribers yet, but it appears to be a ton of people are seeing it. So that's really cool. I mean, if you like it, please share it with somebody. I mean, that's more
And if
important.
you are watching this and you are a writer, we need to reiterate, we don't bring people in just to talk about their books. You have to have something that is relevant to military science fiction,
Right.
writing it or reading it, something like that, something
Pitch an
topic you
idea.
want to discuss.
Yeah, don't just send us an email saying, "Hey, I've written this book and you should have me on your show because I really want to be on your show." Pitch us an idea. I want to talk about time travel and military sci-fi or something.
You
Just let
want to
us
talk
know.
about battle mechs and their application in warfare. Sure. And maybe at the end you say, and this is my book about battle mechs, and we're like, cool. But we're not doing author interviews about their books. That's not what we do. Other
Other
podcasts
than
do that.
us, we
Yeah,
do other interviews about our books
Yeah.
because it's our podcast.
That's right. But other podcasts do that, and that it's great. But that's not our modus
It can
operandi.
get really, really repetitive. And that's the
Yeah.
thing that I think we definitely are not interested in. I mean, same thing with the Discord. Like we want you to join the Discord, but if you're an author and just come in there to try and pimp your work, please don't do that. We're trying to, like, I think people are actually enjoy hanging out with each other. So that's what we're trying to get there.
But don't
Not,
come in and diss the military. That's
And
just not going to end
we
well
did
for
have a
you.
Facebook page, but nobody ever posts on it. So
yeah, we tend to have a lot of veterans. So I think, I don't know, I'll diss the military all I want. Dang it. I earned it. But no, I mean,
well,
that's the thing.
as a veteran, I can diss the military.
But yeah, I think mainly like just don't. We're trying to create like a good space to hang out. So please keep that in mind. Um, All right. Well, hey, let us know if there's some other routines that we missed, and we will see you next time. So we'll talk to you later.
Adios.